Okay. So this is a concept I came up with in the 2005-06 academic year. I was going into my presidency of the American Educational Research Association, and one of the responsibilities of the president is to give a presidential address at the end of at the annual meeting at the end of your presidency. So I had a whole year to kind of think about an idea. And it actually all starts back I was somewhere in New York, headed to the airport, to LaGuardia, and stuck on the Triborough Bridge. And everybody's stuck on the Triborough Bridge because it's always full of traffic, right? So I'm sitting in the back of the cab, and there's a big bulletin board there that has these numbers that are spinning, like rapidly, a big number, and it's spinning, and the caption says, "This is the national debt." Then there's another number also spinning quickly, but not quite as big, right? So the top number is in the trillions, but then there's another number that's big. It's spinning, and its caption says, "And this is your share." And I'm like, hold up. Oh, I can't pay that. I mean, I'm looking at the cab numbers, and I'm like, I can barely get this. Ow, that kind of money? And I asked myself, what made me sort of jump at the notion that I owed that money? The notion of debt, and it was politically, it was the thing that everybody was responding to, right? We can't leave our kids with all this debt. We got to do something about these taxes. We can't keep borrowing. And I was like, everybody's galvanized around debt, saying it's wrong to pass on the debt. And I thought, wow, that's a very different perspective around achievement gap. Around achievement gap, what we are saying is, you need to catch up, okay? Because I'm over here doing good, you ain't. Catch up, right? It's like, Bruno Mars, keep up, right? So that was a much more individualistic notion that somehow there was something wrong with the kids, there's something wrong with their teachers, there's something wrong with their parents, there's something wrong with their community, their culture, and it needs to get itself together and catch up. It also is presuming that the people you're trying to catch up with are waiting for you. Oh yeah, I'm gonna wait for you, come on now. No, they running the race too. They going even further. So I felt like achievement gap was the wrong metaphor for what was actually happening. What has happened is we have incurred the debt. How did we incur it? Well, we incurred it historically. First, I didn't let you go to school, so how you gonna catch up with me? You couldn't even go to school. We didn't have universal secondary schooling for black kids until the 1960s. First high school for black kids in Louisville was in the 1960s, Central High School. So how am I supposed to be at the same place you are, and I'm just really getting started centuries later? And when you gave me schools, look at the condition of the schools I had. I mentioned my dad having a third grade education. Third grade because that was the number of years he went, but if you counted the months, my father his parents were sharecroppers. He was either plowing, planting, harvesting. When he wasn't doing that, that's when he went to school. And he went to a one-room schoolhouse. He was the youngest of 7 kids. He's in the same room with all of his siblings. So even as a little kid, he's in the class with his older brother. One teacher. So he's supposed to catch up. So there were all of these historical things. Then the second thing that I looked at was the economic disparity. We know that what we spend on kids in suburban schools is about somewhere between $7,000 and $10,000 per pupil per year, more than what we spend on kids in urban schools. So I asked the fundamental question: why are the kids in the suburbs worth $7,000 to $10,000 more than the kids in the city? The third thing that I saw that we had a socio-political debt. Schools are public institutions. They are run by public boards. People get elected to be on these boards, and they make public decisions. But if you couldn't vote until 1965, how are you supposed to be at the same place as somebody who's been voting since 1776, right? So those were the three empirical data sets I looked at to show that this debt had accumulated. The one non-empirical claim I made was that there was a moral debt. I don't have the data, but what I can tell you is that some stuff is just wrong. Some stuff is just wrong. I mentioned growing up in West Philadelphia. I went to I'm a baby boomer, so it was a zillion of us. Our elementary schools were big. I think my elementary school probably had about 900 kids in it. It was huge. We had one white family in that school. They were like the poorest white people I ever met in my life. You know, we used to say, ooh, at least I ain't like them, right? You know, that's how poor they were. There was 17 of them. We were like, ooh, wow, at least I ain't like them. But I had these nurturing teachers and who kept telling me I could do this and I could be this. But then I went to junior high school, and I went to a mostly white junior high school. And my classmates had stuff I had no idea. So I use this example I gave a talk at NARS, the National Association of Research and Science Teaching, one year, and I talked about the fact that when I was in junior high school, we had a project in which we were supposed to collect deciduous leaves and make like a little booklet. We had to have a variety of leaves. That was the requirement. What my teacher didn't know, because I was really being bused over there, not bused by the public school, but riding the bus across town to go to this school, is I lived in a black community in which the city had decided to remove all the trees and replant them with one variety. So I could pick up leaves all day long. They was all going to be sycamores. Okay? There was no biodiversity in my community. My junior high school was close to a place called Bartram Gardens. It's an arboretum. It's one of the oldest arboretums in the nation. So my classmates could go over to Bartram Garden and pick up leaves everywhere. Something as simple as that, right? That I can't do the project because I don't have access to what it is you're asking for. Another year I had a science teacher who wanted us to do something called a Cartesian diver. The idea was you get a container, a glass container, you put water in it, and you get a eyedropper. And you put, quote, a semi-permeable membrane over the top, essentially a balloon, right? And then you're able to, it's a principle of air pressure, so you push down on the membrane, and the eyedropper goes to the bottom. And then when you lift up on it, it comes back up. So everybody's supposed to make a Cartesian diver. Okay. Glass bottles in my house had deposits. My father like, you ain't taking that nowhere, because I had to go back to the store so we can get our deposit back. Eyedroppers in my house had medicine in it. You can't take people medicine out the house.
Not today.
So now I'm just stuck with a semi-permeable membrane. That's all I got. And I actually talked about this in this talk at NARS, and I brought with me the Cartesian diver that I made. I said, y'all know, if Miss Mowbray's still living, when y'all tell her I know how to make this. But I couldn't make it then, right? And so that's that whole notion of the moral debt. I was on a expert witness for a funding equity case in South Carolina, rural district, Abbeville et al. Versus the state of South Carolina. And when I was deposed, I shared with the lawyers who were taking the case this incident I had with my daughter. That is the story of the toothpick bridge. My daughter's in a middle school, really good middle school. I chose it because it was a good school, and they were doing really exciting curriculum work. So they were using maths and context, and I was good with math and context because it was written by my colleague, Tom Brownberg, who helped write the math standards. I mean, I know this is good, right? And so she was told that she needed to, well, the project was that the kids were supposed to make a toothpick bridge that was, could withhold the weight of their math textbook. And they had to do it with 100 toothpicks. Now the teachers feel like they were being equitable because they gave every kid a little baggie with 100 toothpicks. I'm like, that's not equitable. Number one, I got 250 in a box over here. I can make a prototype. I ain't got to stick with your 100, right? But what if you only got that 100? Right. The other thing is, toothpick bridges are not about the toothpicks. They are about a hot glue gun. If you ain't got no hot glue gun, you ain't got no toothpick bridge. Elmer's will not sustain a toothpick bridge. You gotta have that hot glue gun. Now, I'm not a crafts person, so I don't have no hot glue gun, but my daughter knows we got resources, so she calls me at work. Mom, you go by Joann's Fabrics and get a hot glue gun so I can do this project? Somebody's trying to call me, not talking to me.
You should have answered like, I'm in the middle of a session right now.
So, I should turn this down. So what I said to her, sure, I'll get it. But she had other kids in her class, other black kids in her class who were equally smart. If they make that phone call, what their mother says is, yeah, on Friday when I get paid. I can't get it today. So they're disadvantaged. My daughter is coming home to a household with 2 college-educated parents, one of whom works at a university, a major university that has a college of engineering. Like, I don't have some friends in it. Doug Henderson is the head of civil engineering. Doug, how you make this? Right? The equity is going out the window, right? As we think about this. She also had high-speed internet access. So let's get on here and see how you're supposed to do this. So, number one, we made the prototype. Now that didn't work. That wasn't good. We done got more resources, more information, and we done finally made this toothpick bridge. It's good to go. The triangles are all right, put the book on it. We're good to go. I say to my daughter, okay, we've been at this a while. Go to bed because you got an early bus. My husband said, bus? Oh, you ain't putting my bridge on no bus. Because you know what's going to happen with 6th and 7th graders on a bus. Let me see yours. Let me see. You ain't going to have nothing by the time. So now we need a parent with the flexibility and the availability to drive you. He had a big old SUV. I'm going to drive. This is going. And it's funny because when I got home, then I said, how did it go? He said, ooh, some people had this on the board. Ooh, some people had little trees. We could have done that. But do you see how this is getting more inequitable as we speak? And that's that kind of moral issue that I say, are we rewarding kids for what they know or for what they have? And that, I've been on this kind of crusade for the last 7, 8 years about homework. I just think homework is a waste of time. I think it's a waste of time.
My students, that's what they said they want. You said you wanted no homework, right? Yeah, that's what they said.
Essentially, when I travel internationally, my international colleagues, they don't give homework. You know what the homework is? Read. Study. Right? Because it's my job to work with you in the classroom. But we have this notion that homework, what signifies something. Many parent-teacher conference I've gone to, I went to one and my daughter, who is like neurotic about school, but she's just a good student. And she had all these A's, and I sat, and the man is explaining to me why she got an A in his class. And he said, and then she got 20 points for her homework. I said, what? Why? Well, it was all done. It was done on time. It was done correctly. And I said, how you know who did that homework? Well, he looked at me like I had a throw in the tail. No, she got an A, man. I said, yeah, but you're rewarding her for something that you didn't supervise. You have no idea who did the homework. You're presuming she did the homework. And you're making that presumption about every other student. The data suggests to us that black kids spend as much time on homework as every other group of kids. They don't get as much done in that time. And because they don't complete it, they, you know, all or nothing. I ain't done it, so I'm not turning it in. So what would happen if a teacher said, here's your homework assignment, and please turn in whatever you accomplish in the time that you have set aside to do this homework? Kids don't hear that. They hear, yeah, I did it, no, I didn't. They think those are the only choices. You know, I'm really fascinated with kids' development. And I started out hoping to be a high school teacher. I wanted to teach high school U.S. history, 11th graders, because I love them. I think 11th graders are like the most fabulous people on the face of the earth. They get it, you know, they get serious. They juniors.
Right.
But unfortunately, everybody else in the world wanted to teach that. So I got assigned, because of my certification in history, social science, to 8th grade U.S. history. They're like the worst people on the face of the earth. I mean, I'm not having this going down a level. I have gone to the opposite end of the spectrum. These people are terrible. But I had to learn a lot about early adolescent development when I worked with them. I didn't know everything mattered. What's the matter, babe? He's looking at me. Okay, avert your eyes, huh? Like, I didn't know that was a thing. Because it's not a thing in 11th grade. In 11th grade, it's like, oh, don't be looking at me. You know, right. So I think that the challenge for me was to appreciate what it is that 8th graders had to offer and what I couldn't expect them. So 8th graders, and I tell this to teachers all the time, 13-year-olds can only make 13-year-old decisions. They can't make 17-year-old decisions. Stop expecting them to make it. You know, a 13-year-old decision is I wake up, I've overslept, ooh, I'm late. Okay, I go tomorrow. That's a 13. That's the decision you make when you're 13. When you're 19 and a college freshman, you wake up late, you go, oh my God, I'm late. Okay, I've missed my first class, but if I hurry, I can get to the second class. Okay? I can't expect my 8th grader to do that. Their life is about all or nothing, right? So those kinds of understandings of adolescent and, you know, development or child development, plain and simple. And what frustrates me about teacher education is we make them take all these courses on child development and child psychology, adolescent development, and then it all goes out their heads when they go into a classroom. So I had a student say to me, yeah, Dr. Ladson-Billings, you know, I got this little black boy in my class, and he did thus and thus and thus. My first response to her is, did he do it because he was black? Or did he do it because he's 8? Because being 8, you know, 8, when you're 8, you're just crazy. You know? You get a pass, right? And so being able to think about where our kids are developmentally, you know, one of the things I find fascinating is all of the baby literature suggests that black kids actually develop faster. This is not a black researcher. This is T. Barry Brazelton, who says when you look over the cohorts, black children are going to sit up, stand, crawl, and walk earlier. My kids all walked at 9 months old. But I have white colleagues who say, oh, your kids really walk fast. I don't know. This is my house. We get tired of carrying you after this. You just go ahead and sit there. You know, I walk. So